Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 21st, 2025 meeting of the Town of Richmond Select Board. As always, we begin with public comment from any member of the public who wishes to speak on an item not on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment? Kara, please come up.
Carla Bounty. I just have two requests for the select board. Request number one is if we could get the cemetery fence fixed. It's obvious somebody ran into it from the inside of the fence, not the outside of the fence, but the third or fourth panel down, it's all bent. So I believe it must have been your lawn mowing company. I'm not sure if you have the same lawn mowing company this year as last year.
We do.
So they haven't,
Wasn't an occupant, so.
well, they haven't
Yes, I'm.
started mowing yet. When did it,
This year.
do we know when it occurred?
We should have it reported to Duncan, so I'll have to speak with
Okay.
him.
Okay, we'll follow up on that. Thank
So
you.
I'd like you to.
Yes, we were aware of it. Mow and Maintain does not claim they did it. We investigated it. The cemetery commission thinks they did. They don't think they did.
Well, look on the inside of it, if there's any paint to it, if there's a certain color
I have
paint.
looked at it. Yep.
Okay, so I'll let you investigate that. Bottom line is if we could get it fixed before 4th of July, that would be great. Appreciate that, because it looks beautiful. I have a lot of people commenting on it to us that it looks really nice, so thank you for doing that. And the other piece is I'm not able to attend your meetings about discussion about the police department, but I'm on the town center committee. So if you guys could have Josh give some kind of update on if there's any usage change in the building or any plans for the police department space, if it's going to stay police department for the complete space, just as we're trying to help make recommendations on usage. It would be great if we could find that out, including even the area right behind you that potentially could be changed into storage. So just if you've got.
Yep. So as of right now, there's been no discussion of changing the space, but if that happens, I'll inform you in the
That's a very
committee.
fair request, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep you involved.
Were you asking us for us to talk about it as part of the kind of specific item tonight?
No, I'm
No, just in
asking
general.
Okay, gotcha.
you to
Makes sense.
put together
Yeah.
any prior discussions and thoughts and get it to Duncan, because Duncan's been great about helping the town center committee do our agendas and have everything in order and documentation. So
So right now, there's been no discussion of space changes, and if there are, I'll let you know.
that's good to know. And the committee can then come to you and make recommendations if they so feel something can be done.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I
Happy to
know
have
we
a
have been
conversation.
contemplating putting a sauna in here, but if we could use it.
I'm going to let you know, as somebody who's very aware of what the budget is for the town center committee, not gonna happen.
No sauna. Oh, well.
Just didn't want you to get your hopes up. We're working on a fence getting fixed.
No one wants to go in a free sauna, but doesn't seem.
Okay, any other public comment from anybody remote or in person? Seeing none. Additions, modifications, or deletions to the agenda. We have a request for, Adam, you can say it.
Yeah, can we, if we have an executive session, can we move that to somewhere in the first section? I have no.
Adam is out here, he will not be able to
Well,
speak till
my
the
wife's
very
gone
end.
for the week, so, I guess if we can get, we can get the first four out of the way.
Yeah, I think
So this-
putting it between B
assuming
and E
that
makes
people hear.
sense. Comment?
That makes sense.
Good. And then I just have a brief update on the flood mitigation study that if we could just add to the top of the agenda, it'd be 2 minutes.
Since it's an action item, certainly.
Not an action item, just public information.
Okay, any other changes? Seeing none, then we will move on into the agenda and commence with your action, with your update.
Sure. So as we've talked about before, we're working on a flood mitigation study with some engineers with Stone Environmental for the Winooski River, as well as some of the tributaries. Part of that work is flying a drone to collect data for a LiDAR map. We just talked with them today. They will actually not be flying a drone, but they're able to combine this with a project in Barrie, where they're going to be having a helicopter fly over Barrie. And they find it to be more cost effective to just use that helicopter time to fly over Richmond as well. So their weather window right now is May 7th through 9. As that tightens up, I'll definitely get more word out on Front Porch Forum and through my email blast that I have. The flying will last for about an hour. They'll mostly go from the Jonesville end of the river all the way up to about the interchange of I-89. And there will be some painted markers on the road that helps them sort of with some of their data points. It'll be with marking paint, it'll be about a dozen of them. Not repeat about it. It's not intrusive and they'll wash away in about 4 weeks. And I will be putting more information out about that, but wanted to start the public outreach tonight.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, our first item on the printed agenda is consideration of approval of the Round Church Women's Run. Information about this is in your packet. Do we have anybody present from that? If you'd like to please come forward.
Jasmine Sylvester Cross, Elizabeth. And
So please tell us about the Women's Run.
so the Brown Church Women's Run, we are requesting that the select board allow us to hold the 5K and 10K race on Saturday, July 26th at 7:30. The proposal which we have sent to Josh fully includes some road closures and the idea being that it would be from about 7:25 to 10 a.m. and that around most people would be off the road by 9:15. We're hoping that the select board may approve that date and time. We're happy to answer any questions if you have any.
And
Yes, yes, as you can see.
Okay, and this request does include a request for police presence. Is that something we've checked on? Will we be able to supply that?
I think they said they were gonna try to find a different agency.
Oh, a different agency.
You can tell, you can, I mean, if we have the manpower, then certainly. I'll
Yeah.
just check with the chief and see.
Okay.
I just don't know that we have the staffing at this time for that, so you might need a sheriff.
Okay.
Okay, so members of the select board, do you have any questions for our organizers? Any thoughts, comments? This again is a Saturday race and people who this will start and end at basically behind Man and Machine. And if you live on Cochrane Road, you need to come out. There will be, you won't be trapped until the race is over, correct?
Right, there'll be one lane of traffic open.
Are there flaggers to alternate traffic on that?
We can definitely make sure that that occurs.
Or
yes.
was it one-way traffic? I just.
Right
didn't
now
know
it's
what the
listed
plan was.
Cochrane Road eastbound only.
Okay,
Okay.
oh, okay.
Just a thing we often ask is what you expect for number of participants or runners, racers.
I would say this year we're anticipating a pretty small turnout because it's kind of, we're bringing it back. I would say right now somewhere between 50 and 100.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, there is a note in the chat from Fran Thomas of the Historical Society noting that they have yet to receive the usual request to use the parking grass lot.
Yes, that is on our to-do list, but we were hoping that we could get approval from you all first.
Okay, Fran, is that okay? Well, we'll wait to see.
That's fine.
Okay,
I'm
thank
up.
you.
Any other
Be in touch
thoughts?
soon.
Member of the select board? Okay, seeing none, there is a draft motion in the packet. If you would like to, somebody would like to make that.
Sure. Caitlin, I move to approve the Round Church Women's Run to be held on Saturday, July 26th, 2025, and to close the following roads for the event. Far Road and Thompson Road from 7:25 to 9:15 a.m. The eastbound lane or Cochrane Road from 7:25 to 9:15 a.m.
Okay, this is David. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Caitlin Falcon, seconded by David Sander to approve the Round Church Women's Run to be held on Saturday, July 26, 2025, and to close the following roads: Far Road and Thompson Road from 7:25 to 9:15, and the eastbound lane of Cochrane Road from 7:25 to 9:15. Okay, any further discussion?
Just a quick question, Jay.
Yeah.
What's the benefits from this run? What can you so the public knows why closing roads in Richmond is a benefit to others?
Yeah, so it's we're hoping that this will be beneficial to the participants, and this is to benefit the Girls on the Run in Vermont. So
Thank you.
the proceeds will be going towards Girls on the Run, but also just a communal thing as well. Like, we hope that the community can benefit from this.
Nice.
Great.
Okay, seeing you've heard the motion. If there's no further comment, please state your name and your vote.
David, I.
Caitlin, I.
Art, aye.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you
Thank
so
you all
much.
You.
Okay, our next item of business is the annual art crawl, and we do have the requester here. This would be to use the town center campus for the art crawl on Sunday, September 28th.
I'm really here to answer questions, but if,
Could you state,
What's this?
let us know who you are?
oh, I'm Judy Bush.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so there is information about the event in the packet. I think a lot of us are familiar with the art crawl, but if you're not, or if you're a member of the public who's never heard of this,
It's much the same as last year.
Yeah.
We began, well, for the last 2 years, we've been able to close the parking lot too. We've used the space behind the library. I've already talked to the library. They're happy with that. We do leave it open so the post office can come in and out. I mean, we work with all the people that use the space. The Congregational Church knows that they have to make arrangements on that Sunday. It's basically, people start setting up around 7 even. And they get here very, if we say 7, they get here at 6. If we say 8, they get here at 7. So, and the event is from 10 to 3. We're pretty much all cleaned up and everything's done by 5.
and this is sponsored by Radiate.
Mhm.
And it features more than 50 local artisans, art activities, and food trucks. So David, if you have need to sell your your custom ornamented hubcaps, this could be your chance.
Yeah,
I'll set up.
check it out. Have you been to one before? Okay.
Jay, this is David. I move to approve the use of the town center campus for the art crawl on Sunday, September 28th, 2025.
Adam, second.
Okay, we have a motion made by David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to approve the use of the town center campus for the art crawl on Sunday, September 28th, 2025. Is there any further discussion?
Just a
Yes.
quick
Kara.
question, Judy. Is it's sponsored by Radiate, but is it a fundraiser for Radiate
It's our
to
main-
help with you?
It's one of our main fundraisers.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure people realize that it's not just you have vendors coming, but it's to raise money for Radiate.
Thank you. We usually raise about $4,000. We
That's-
get, vendors pay a certain, I don't know what it is right now, but it was maybe $50 for a
I just
space.
wanted people to realize in the community
Yeah.
that the reason we're closing the parking lot and doing this is to help generate a fundraiser.
Yeah,
I appreciate
It's
it.
also a lot of fun. We have
It's
free
wonderful.
art activities and we have,
Yes,
so it's
It's a good time.
it's a good time, so thank
It's
you.
fun.
Yeah. Okay, any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, please state your name and your vote.
David, I.
Caitlin, I.
Art, aye.
Adam, I.
Jay, aye. Okay, our next.
Thank you
Thank
for
very
coming.
much.
Thank you.
now we can let people sign up. They've been waiting.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is consideration of approval of leases for the tenants here in the town center. In addition to the post office and the town government itself, we also lease space to the senior center, the historical society, our community cares camp, it's right there behind the screen, and Mount Mansfield Community Television. These leases would be for 2 years beginning, what is it, July 1st? July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2027. With the exception of Mount Mansfield Community Television, these are $1 a year leases. Mount Mansfield Community Television pays essentially market rate.
I'll tell you exactly here one minute.
It's like $1,400 a month or.
I don't have it memorized. Let me find it.
I can pull it up too.
$1,283.93 per month.
Okay, so there would be four motions, one for, actually, no. There is one motion, but if anybody wants to carve any of these out for any reason, you're welcome to. Thoughts, questions about renewing the leases?
I guess I just note two changes because we brought this to the board, I guess, a couple months ago. The board had a question about removing the word major from in front of renovations where it talks about vacating the premises. So we took the word major out and just said any renovations, the town has the right to ask tenants to leave or vacate. And all the leases had a 90-day notice. If the town needed to break the lease for any reason, there was a clause in the MMC TV lease, which included a 14-day notice for vacating the premises temporarily for renovations. And they would prorate the rent at that point, which is maybe why it wasn't added into the other leases initially, because it's only $1. But I added that 14-day notice into all the other leases so the tenants would know what to expect if we needed them out for a few weeks or something like that.
Yeah, I wish to state that I will not be voting on this motion because I am president and treasurer of the MMCTV board and therefore could be said to have a conflict of interest. Okay, we have not yet made the motion though. Kara?
Jay, just a question, being on the town center committee, and I know it's a 2-year lease, is there a clause, and I apologize for not having pre-read them, is there a clause in there for us possibly being able to relocate them within the building? Because like, if we're doing some construction in one area, maybe we could relocate them to another area, or if we find a space that's more suitable for somebody, is there a relocation within the building clause?
I thought there was, but let me get my eyes on it.
And
Because
if not, I recommend building that in.
I think when we drafted
So
the
it
initial
says
Section
leases,
5.
I got
Yeah.
this right here. Yeah, I can share the screen.
Well, you might have to read it because the might not be big.
I can make it bigger too. We can do all sorts of things. So this says leaser may undertake renovations to the building during the term. Leasee shall cooperate with any reasonable accommodate leaser and its contractual agents. So I think reasonable accommodations could mean, hey, we're going to move you downstairs. Not that there's a lot of places to move.
My question was not just specific to renovations. If the town center committee comes up with a new layout or a new plan that might work differently, it might mean relocation without being driven by renovations.
Right.
So for example, you have, I think Community Cares Camp is in one of these offices.
It's right there.
We find a different office that is more suitable, that office is huge in there. They're not using the full space. We might find a smaller office that serves their purpose and be able to do something different with that larger room. So that's just my idea is, could a relocation, not just driven by renovation, and it doesn't look like that might be a clause, a stipulation in there. Because 2 years is a long period of time to lock a lease in when you've got a town center committee that's trying to
Go back up,
make
Josh.
improvements.
You go back up to 6. Okay, never mind.
One option might be to modify the first sentence in item 5. Where it's undertaking renovations, you could insert something after renovations or other modifications to the space, something like that, potentially including relocation within the building. That's kind of what you're implying, right?
Yeah. I mean, we want to make sure there's space for, and it's adequate and all of those kinds of pieces, but we don't want to be limited for 2 years to not be able to make any changes.
renovations to the building or relocations within the building.
There you go.
Oh,
Or something, not relook, doesn't.
We have the idea, right? And it seems like you've got to then modify every one of these leases.
And send them back to them.
send it back for review again.
Is there a separate cost for different space sizes? Or is it all the same?
$1.
$1 except for MMC TV.
Seems like a reasonable suggestion to me.
Okay, if the sense of the board is we'd like to send it back for another modification, we can state that and move on.
We have the time.
Yep, we've got some time.
No
So,
question. I mean, this is plenty of turnaround time
Yeah.
on your end, right, Josh? So
Yeah, should
yeah,
be
I think
fine.
that's a reasonable.
Yeah,
Thank you and sorry to.
No, it's fine.
Thank you.
We have time.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, our next item is consideration of approving quitclaim deeds on Tilden Avenue for stormwater line, which will be abandoned after the new line is constructed. Josh, I'd like you to summarize this if you would.
Yeah, let me pull up a map here, probably.
Including what a quitclaim deed is. It might be useful to start with that.
Sure. Um. My maps to be helpful. Okay. So we've talked about this water line project a few times. This is, I think this is 104 Tilden or 102 Tilden here. There's a stormwater line that originates back up here. It comes down here, it goes around the back of the house, comes down this area, and then enters into this shaded area, which the town has an easement on, and then comes in and connects to this, the main stormwater line. This is a stormwater line that goes back over 100 years, back to like the early days of Richmond. It was originally a combined stormwater and wastewater line and has since been turned into just a stormwater line. Art?
I would only add, for those of you who know anything about stormwater lines, a 90-degree turn is contraindicated in your stormwater drainage line. The local oral history has it that was moved to accommodate a garage that was added to the back of that building. So it used to, apparently, you can picture it going straight down that angle, and then it was moved to make the 90-degree angle. Yeah, presumably it used to be a straight kind of shot and it was modified as well. So there's a couple of new turns.
So, and then the town did some work on it with the Tilden Stormwater project. I think this goes back 15 years or so, where we replaced this portion of the line here, got a formal easement, but we don't have a formal easement for this other part of the line. This is historical, where we've done a similar project over on Pleasant Street. We didn't have easements because it goes back over 100 years, but the town assumed responsibility for this line. So this is currently overflowing at times, coming into the homeowner's garage and basement. So we've decided we can address this. And basically what we're going to do is reroute the line so that it comes straight down underneath the driveway here, connects in here, and then flows down. Actually, I think it'll be a new line that flows down to this catchment here.
Mhm.
So once we do that, we no longer have need for this easement or this portion of the line. So a quitclaim will essentially give up the town's rights to this easement, which is on 102 Tilden and 86 Tilden. And we'll sign that once we have the easements in hand. Actually, I just got the easement for 86 Tilden today. So we've got both easements that we need to connect this line. And then once the line is constructed, we'll give up this easement, but we will have new easements for the new line on both, well, 102, 86, and there's two other properties that are affected, but we don't have current easements on those properties.
Is there any time between when so if we file this quitclaim deed and we move the lines, that there's a possibility that we would need to have access?
No, because we're going to cap it at where it exits. So we'll cap it in this section here where we put the new line in, so we won't need any access to it. I do know that the owners here of, I think I'm getting the numbers right, of 102, they want to keep this in here because I think there's a perforated pipe back here that is draining part of their yard. So they're working on a private agreement with their neighbors to keep this easement here, but between the two of them, so that they have the right for their backyard water to continue to run out of their backyard. But we don't need to be involved in that. It's down. And we won't sign the quitclaim until everything is done and constructed. Then we'll give up. But I need the authority to do that so that the homeowners know we're moving forward.
Is there language in your easement to also abandon the line or give them ownership of the line from where you're going to disconnect, the one that goes around the back of the structure? So that there's no question.
We
in the
don't,
future?
I mean, we don't currently have an easement on that at all, so there'd be.
Is my point. So I think you need to make sure you dot all your i's and cross your t's and make sure that where the new easement starts and where the new line will run from that point forward, that any lines in the ground that you are hereby
Mhm.
quit claiming to them as well, so they have ownership of the line. Trust me, I've been here, done that. You need to make sure the ownership of the line, where that ends and who owns it from that point forward.
I can see what we can do to add that to it.
Okay,
Sorry, I don't mean to, I just
Fine.
know that you guys have things that come back.
We do want to make sure we clarify
Yep.
that if the end of that perforated pipe does end up in the easement, just, it's from the point of disconnect, not
Right. Point.
from the edge of the easement or whatever. So if it's an 8-foot easement, we don't own 4 feet of pipe by
Mhm.
accident. So like that
Yeah.
it is.
So a future owner can't come back and say, well, this is your
Yeah.
town line. Yeah,
Like, I
that makes
think-
sense.
Christy and everyone are on board. They are happy this is happening, but in 50 years, we're like, who
Yeah.
owns this 4 feet?
Right.
Never done that, right?
Connect it back in.
do we need to bring this back up?
Yep.
Is that
Okay,
gonna slow you down at all, or?
I don't think it'll be too bad.
Okay.
Because I think in general, you guys are in favor of this if we have, so even if construction starts in 2 weeks, which I don't think it's going to, I don't think, and we have the other easement signed, so it'll be fine.
Yeah. So you can start construction, you just can't give up this easement.
Quit
technically
this.
until-
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I can't speak for the owners of the properties, but I think that they want this done, so, and knowing that you guys are generally in favor and we're gonna add more to the back, I think we'll be fine.
And as discussed at the start of the meeting, we contemplated our executive session occurring at this time. This would be an executive session, regarding evaluation of an employee. The motions start on line 264 of your memorandum. If anyone is interested in making the motions.
I move, Caitlin, I move to find that premature public knowledge about the evaluation of an employee would cause the town or person to suffer a substantial disadvantage.
Jay, this is David. I'll second.
We have a motion from Caitlin Filkin, seconded by David Sander, to find that premature public knowledge about the evaluation of an employee would cause the town or person to suffer a substantial disadvantage. Please state your name and your vote.
David, I.
Caitlin, I.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye.
Jay, this is David. I move that we enter into executive session to discuss the evaluation of an employee under the provisions of 1 VSA 313A3 and to invite town manager Josh Arneson into the executive session.
Caitlin, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Caitlin Filkins, to enter into executive session to discuss the evaluation of an employee under the provisions of 1 VSA 313A3 and to invite town manager Josh Arneson into the executive session. Please state your name and your vote.
David, I.
Caitlin, I.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Jay, aye. Okay, folks at home and folks here, we will try to be as quick as we can about this because we know we've got a lot of things left on the agenda.
Hey, Josh, you're still screen sharing.
Welcome back, everyone. Little change in the seating chart. Adam had another commitment he had to go to and Jay wasn't feeling well, so we just lost our chair and vice chair. So for the second time tonight, even though I'm not chair or vice chair, I find myself chairing a meeting. It is what it is. So getting back on track, we are now at item E. Update from Watershed Consulting on progress of preliminary engineering for the Southview stormwater permit and discussion of next steps. So Josh, you want to sort of lead this conversation?
I'll turn it over to Andres from Watershed Consulting.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfectly.
Great. Well, thanks for having me back, and I'm here to give an update since the last time I was in front of the board talking about the 3-acre work that we've been doing for Southview. And specifically what I wanted to discuss, present to the board and just discuss and get your feedback was, basically at the last time I was in front of the board, we had done some initial of the feasibility work, and including the soils work. I talked about doing soil borings and the fact that we had found some really good soils at some of the sites around the neighborhood, and that we were going to be utilizing those soils kind of to our advantage with respect to what would need to be done to meet the 3-acre rule. So since then, we've done some calculations and come up with a treatment plan that's really just, crudely sized at this point, but I at least wanted to kind of explain, what the type of treatment is that we were looking at doing, and present these basic plans that we have in hopes of kind of getting a good sense that we're able to kind of charge ahead, because the next step, really what I'd like to do right off is get a surveyor back to the site to get some proper design plans produced for each one of these. But I just wanted to wait on that, I guess, until I got your feedback. So Josh, does the board have the color plans, the like 4 or 5 sheets, and then the examples that I sent you of the different chamber pictures? Yeah.
Yes, I've included everything in the packet, the close-in view of the locations, and then the photos that you sent as well. So where would you like to start? The
We can just
locations?
start at the top. Yeah, start at maybe just the first sheet. We'll just go through them right there. Yeah, that's great. So just to kind of I'm just going to assume that really just starting from scratch in terms of what these are. I think the best way to describe would be, I think most people are familiar with a dry well, right? So dry well is basically, stormwater type structure that has really no outlet other than, it's basically designed to take that water and put it back into the ground. And so the dry well systems that we're looking at using here are these StormTech systems. And so these are modular systems. They're basically pipe material, HDPE pipe material. And you can see that's a good photo right there where the bottom is open. So the bottom's open to the soil. And they sit on a bed of stone, and they're these half-round chambers. And then the half-round chambers are set in place, and then basically stones placed around them, and they're backfilled up to where you really would have no idea that they're actually there other than the inlet. Like on that photo, you can see the concrete structure. That's basically just like a catch basin, just like your typical catch basin. That's the way the water would actually get into the structure. So there's a couple reasons why we're looking at these. I think that we've done many systems in Vermont with these on all types of systems, residential, commercial, industrial. They're generally very economical. They're generally very easy to maintain with some proper equipment, which would be basically a Vector truck, just like you would need for any catch basin. They allow for a really large surface area, so they really take advantage of good soil conditions. So, in your typical dry well, you would have basically like a concrete round structure with holes in the side, doing the same thing, but it really doesn't allow that much surface area on the bottom. These provide a lot of surface area, so there are a lot of ability for the water to get into the ground. They also bring the water below the frost line. So during like a rain on snow, the water is going to come into a catch basin. It's basically going to get below the frost line. It's still going to work really well in the winter. And we're confident it meets, these meet state regulations. So they would also really have no impact on the visual impact in the neighborhood, which I was concerned about. So the chamber size that we're looking at right here in this photo is actually the exact chamber size that we're looking at on this site. And so each one of these, if we wanted to pan to the plan, yeah, just you could start at the first one, Josh, maybe in the loop there at the end of the loop. Basically these are all what's called this MC 3500 chamber. So you can just see, and these are kind of to scale. So these are sized initially with respect to, the treatment volume that we need to meet. So I've just kind of placed these in. So you can see this one right here at the end of the loop. And then maybe you can just scroll through, and then I can take some questions, and we can look in more in detail at the rest of them. This is kind of climbing up the road, climbing up Southview Drive on the right. Another set of chambers right here. Another one right at the intersection of West Hall and Southview and Joan, sorry. And then West Hall Drive there. I think is that the last one? There might be one more. I can't remember. Yeah, it's the last one. So I guess with that, maybe I'll just pause and kind of take any questions that you guys have about what I just explained.
Well, this is Bart. Thanks for this. This is really helpful. Two
Yeah.
questions. First, are these the actual proposed sort of sites and installations? So, and it would appear then that they are all within the right of way. Do I understand that or perceive that correctly?
You do, and these are the spots, yes. These are the proposed spots. This is where it really makes sense to collect the water that we need to, and that is the other reason that we're proposing them is because we wanted to fit everything within the right of way.
And the related question is thinking about the installation, and you can't really see the topography here very well,
Right.
but one presumes that these are at low points in some fashion, that the water finds its way to these dry wells, if I can call them that.
Yep. Yeah, that's correct. And in some cases like this, there would need to be a little bit of work to get the water to where we needed it to go. For instance, I believe on this one, if we're looking at this, there's a swale that runs on the south side of the road, and it would be where we would need a culvert basically under the road to connect into the system. So right about where Josh's cursor is right there. Yeah, exactly. And so none of that's shown because we don't have the survey data yet to kind of prove that out, to make sure that that's going to work. And so that's kind of the next step is getting some actual ground shots around this area. But that's kind of what I was seeing in the field in terms of how I think it could work.
And then the $64,000 question, how many thousands of dollars more or less might we anticipate this costing? Any sense of that?
Yep. So I don't have a cost, but I can actually get a cost pretty easily. I can just start with like a preliminary cost. We have a really good relationship with ADS, who's the company, and I can talk to their engineer and at least get a material cost to start, just so you know how much like just purchasing the materials is going to be. I can get that, once we decide we want to go this direction.
Thank you.
I do think though, just from my experience on these, it's going to be it will be cost competitive, I think, with, in terms of the other tools that are out there.
Andres, as far as maintenance, I imagine a lot of sediment will find their way into these and has to be cleaned out. How long do these take before they get filled up with sediment? And you mentioned a Vector truck. Can you just describe the maintenance cycle and what that looks like?
Yeah, so and answer your first question, the way that these work, like for that, actually, if Josh, if you go back up to that one that we were just looking at there, see how there's two rows. So essentially, one of the two rows would be defined as what's called an isolator row, and that's where the water, they're designed to take the water initially that comes in and actually trap the sediment in that row. And it would be on this drawing, the way this is set up, it'd be the row that's closer to the road, essentially. And that row is wrapped in fabric. So the sediment actually gets trapped, and you basically the process is there's a manhole at either end. You can see with the D. And then there's a 24-inch pipe that goes in. So with basically a vac truck, and there's a tool basically called a sled where you can kind of push it into the chamber and then pull it out and pull the sediment out and then basically vac it up. And so it's basically kind of depends about how much sediment is being generated on the site in terms of how often you would have to do that. But it's not an every year kind of a thing. It's usually like every 3-year type thing, maybe a little bit longer than that. And the way that we know is by looking in these manholes every year, just as part of the annual inspection, we basically keep an eye on the sediment accumulation in there. And when it's about 25% of the capacity of that first row chamber, it's time to clean it out. So it will function for a long time, even if there's a lot of sediment that gets built up in there. But eventually, yeah, it just gets cleaned out, with a vac truck like Wind River, or it used to be Hardigan, now what is it? Wind River. Yeah, P&P, those type folks. I mean, they'll have the tool necessary to do it.
Okay, Caitlin?
Just a reminder that I live in Southview, so I'll abstain from any voting and so forth, and any comments or questions I have are as a townsperson, not as a select board member.
Kevin, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My question is, what is your level of confidence? I'm talking to the engineer here, Andres, that this is something that the state would feel is a good solution to our type of problem, or there are pieces in here of the design that may be a little more questionable, where the state would probably come back and make other recommendations?
No, I'm very confident on like the overall strategy. The state will have, they'll always have some comment on, the application that ultimately goes in. But in terms of this type of practice with the soil conditions we saw, it's very confident that there isn't going to be kind of pushback on this. I mean, this is going to be, these have been approved many, many times over and used, many times. So the state's going to be comfortable with them.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
Caitlin? Oh,
First.
And Caitlin, sometimes just for the illusion that if.
Oh, I can move. Yeah.
I think so that people know you're asking as a person of the audience, you don't have to, but it saves you and protects you more than everybody. The question I have, you said inspecting annually. Now, like pre-treatment septic systems, things like that need to have a certified engineer come out to do the inspection.
Mhm.
Is this something that a highway foreman can inspect, or do we have to be under contract to have an annual inspection of all these systems by an engineer?
No, the town highway foreman can definitely inspect it every year.
Great answer. Second question. The system itself, I know you're saying comparable to other types of systems, that kind of thing. My question is, and I'm not a Southview, but I think they would care with what things would cost. Is this the most cost-effective system, or is there a potential another system the state would agree to that is more affordable?
I mean, it's definitely very cost effective. Whether or not it's the absolute cheapest solution, I can't say for sure, because there's obviously multiple ways to to meet the regulation. It's not a one size fits all thing, but I think that collectively it is they're very competitive. I think where the chambers get more expensive is when you have to do a lot of rebuilding of, say, an existing parking lot, and you have to factor in the paving costs and everything else, or like moving utilities, that type of thing. The cost of the actual chamber itself, it's a pretty basic type material. It's essentially just pipe, like I was saying, it's culvert material. So the chambers themselves are not very expensive. They're very easily delivered on a truck. They can stack. Up into like a pallet, and they deliver them on the truck. It's not really a big thing. So I think, for this system, like many of these, like we're looking at, are, kind of tucked in the grass and stuff. So, the cost to kind of, backfill and then kind of restabilize that area is not going to be that much. So yeah, I mean, I just think it's got all the elements of, I picked it because it's got all the elements of kind of, meeting the rules, being cost effective, but also kind of meeting the concerns, or, what I was envisioning is kind of the needs of the community, kind of keeping things low profile and keeping things, visually consistent with how they are up there right now.
Andres, one final question, but I do think you have a great design, and the thought process is, I'm very appreciative of that. And I do think it does look like it would be an affordable approach. The last thing is to reduce sediment. Is there any, guidance with like what the grounds around it should be? If it's best to be grass or if it's best to be, riprap, or what's the best, materials outside of it that are gonna drain into it approach? Is there recommendations for that?
Yeah, so it should just be, just going on the one that we're looking at right here, essentially it would just be grass and the swale would just function just as it is. And I really wouldn't propose any other changes other than what's shown here. And, you are gonna get a lot of, at each one of those D locations where the water is coming in, that's just like a typical catch basin. It will have a sump. And so the sump will catch, sediment and leaves and debris, just like a normal catch basin does. So it will continue to kind of function just like a catch basin essentially. And this is like a very clean site comparatively to other places where we've installed these. Like for example, a really highly used commercial parking lot where there's a lot of sanding going on and a lot of salt use. And even in those conditions, like these still kind of continue to perform pretty well. So I don't think it's going to be a problem.
How long does it take to install these? How long will the road be disrupted?
That's a good question. So I would say, for each one of these, the one that we're looking at right now, a week, if that. I'm just going off of the pictures that Josh was showing. Those are from Jericho Elementary. We installed a bunch of these last year, and it was basically like there were two different systems. I mean, it's basically like 2 weeks. So, I mean, they could open the hole here in say like 2 days. Put the stone down, build the chambers, and backfill. Probably like I was saying, like within a week or so. And something like this, it's just like the road would probably have to go down to one lane or whatever, so they could kind of work around it right there.
So you're saying 2 weeks, that's breaking ground to completion, right?
Yeah, for like each one of these. Yeah. I mean, so I don't know if they would be doing depends obviously who you'd hire and stuff, if they had crews working multiple sites, but yeah, roughly like 1 to 2 weeks per chamber.
Okay. Brendan, go ahead.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, just for full disclosure, what we're looking at right now is my property, and I'm not going to recuse myself, but do you guys have any idea where the septic is here? Because you're literally putting something over the septic, and that feels incredibly redundant and wildly inefficient. So I'm curious if you guys looked at that at all.
Where the septic, I don't know where you could tell me maybe where the septic is. I don't know where the septic is.
Yeah, it's directly behind chamber one.
Okay. We're in that in the grass space there where that's shown with the kind of got a little
Yeah,
bit
so
of
there's a
dead
leach
grass.
field there. So it feels like that's probably a pretty bad place to put a chamber.
Right. So again, this is the reason that we're we're having this discussion. So I appreciate that. And we can make adjustments to it if maybe I can talk with you or Josh if you guys had like an actual plan. I don't know if you do have a plan, if you're aware of like a design plan that might show exactly where it is. We can make sure that we're outside of the setback for that, the needed setback for that.
Yeah, that is something that I've requested from the town so we could see exactly where it is. I haven't gotten that yet. But I think this is probably a poor design decision.
So Brendan, you feel your leach field is near that catch basin?
Directly adjacent to it.
Okay. Bart?
So, yeah, I was just gonna guess your leach field is probably not in the right of way for the road. It's more the setback distance between the leach field and this installation, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, and probably something that would be almost exactly the same kind of intervention that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, I mean, we kind of deal with that type of issue all the time with these, and there's a designated kind of distance that we want, and obviously, if putting stormwater into the ground upslope of your septic system could have an adverse impact on the septic system, this would be down gradient. So really, what we would need to make sure is that the effluent flow path from your system wouldn't be somehow compromised by the chamber, obviously, right? So it's a little bit of a different situation, but if we can figure out exactly where it is, we can definitely, like I was saying, these are modular and the shape is can be changed, and we could certainly move this, one way or another to make sure that we're out of that. So it doesn't need to be precisely where it is to make it work. We can work around that.
Art?
So presumably, as this is kind of a first pass, it would seem to me, and then as you get closer, you referred to a survey where you'd be looking at what other subsurface installations might be there.
Right.
Whether it's water line or is there any existing stormwater or septic fields, leach fields? I guess that's kind of a state where that's in the next phase, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, exactly. We would send a surveyor out to the site to actually get some real topography, some surveyed topography in these areas, so we really would understand the grades. And then I would also ask them to be pulling whatever other data we had, or we could get our hands on, like related to, like, for instance, a septic would be a good thing. We could actually show that on the plans, and any other infrastructure, so that we could make sure that we're not, we're kind of working around everything as needed.
Caitlin?
I didn't realize that this was our property until Brendan said that. I thought this was further up the road. Now I'm looking at it differently. Knowing our property and knowing that, when you dig anywhere down in it gets very rocky. And I don't mean like just little rocks. I mean, we've hit big boulders and so forth. So I assume as part of the exploration here that you would go through and make sure that what you're digging into is kind of what you expect, and you wouldn't have to do some more forceful excavation of big rocks that are under there.
I will
Yeah,
say,
go
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that is also one when we were there this winter with the drill rig, we had the little drill rig. We actually were not able to access this site because of the snow and the ice. He couldn't get his rig into there, so this was actually one area that um I was planning on going back to as well so we will confirm that. If we can land on a spot that works here, we will confirm that the soil conditions are decent here as well, for sure. Yeah.
One thing I just wanted to add is my time on the board has shown me many times that in developments, we look at the plans where the septic system was said to have been installed, and we find it isn't there, and or what was planned wasn't built accordingly. So that I'm not saying we will, but I'm saying don't be surprised if we come across that. Kevin, go ahead.
Yes, I assume also there's other types of modifications that need to be done. I know you're probably taking advantage of the drainage ditch along the road there, but it's got to get cross driveways. So there may be some drain culverts between or underneath driveways that connect one side to the other that may be partially obstructed, things like that. Is that true?
Yes, in some areas, yes, but not, I mean, really just in terms of like where we've gone so far, the work that we've done to date, we've kind of just been conceptualizing, kind of getting the water into these chambers. I mean, there may be some other types of culvert improvements around, but nothing's really jumping at me yet in terms of, having to do a lot of new collection systems, I guess, to kind of bring the water to the chambers, other than just like, the culvert that we were discussing before. So not a lot, no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Only a point of order. Are you guys making some kind of motion? Because you don't have a quorum up. I'm just making sure. Sitting up there to do that. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think it's a good question about quorum. I think all Andres is really looking for is sort of a general consensus that this looks like a plausible solution to the board and we can move forward with. He needs to do a soil survey and a disconnection survey to kind of are the next steps. But before he went to that, we wanted to make sure that there wasn't a huge objection to this plan.
And just so we're clear, this isn't a plan, this is a concept of the plan.
Correct.
And there is a huge objection to it.
Kevin, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't know it was still on.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked up and saw your hand was up, so I thought it was up again.
Did I hear somebody say there is a huge objection to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Brendan Filkins. There is a
Oh,
huge objection to this.
For the location of this one in particular, right?
Yeah.
Like if we can move that so that it doesn't affect your septic, the overall design of the best management practice here is okay.
The concept.
I mean, overall, I think the results of this need to go to the state to make the argument that this is a ridiculous initiative across the board. This 3-acre rule is not efficient at all. But yes, I'm particularly objecting to Chamber 1 here.
Understood.
But strictly the location, but not the technology.
No, I think for stormwater intervention, the technology is actually probably the very appropriate. I think that the sites we've chosen for intervention at the state level are the big problem that I have.
I think we're all in agreement on that.
That's actually agenda item
Yes, G.
So we'll get there.
So just one other thing, just to clarify too. So one of the other next steps Josh had mentioned, we've done this disconnection analysis, which is basically like evaluating, just trying to prove to the state that, there's enough passive treatment that's occurring right now on the site on a lot of these homes, just the way the rooftops are draining. So we've done that on the desktop. But we need to go out and actually walk around the neighborhood and take some measurements and photos and stuff. And that may also change the chambers, because right now I think we're a little conservative. So if we can kind of make up a little bit of ground by doing that, then we'll be able to shrink these down further. So it's a little bit of a balance right now. So that's why it's just a concept. But that's one of the things that we want to do in pretty short order is actually go out and do that work, walk around and kind of look at each one of the rooftops. So I was going to be in touch with Josh and we had a date to actually do that work.
Thank you, Andres. Anything else before we move on? Moving on. So next is update on the request for a reduction in the assessed value of properties in the Southview stormwater permit area. Josh, did you want to give us an update on that?
Sure. So our assessor, Lisa Truchon, was approached by a resident of Southview asking for a reduction in assessed property value, as we heard at the last meeting here, for lots that are included in the Southview stormwater permit area. So she is looking into lowering the assessed value of each property that's in the permit area. She's justifying this reduction in value by citing the letter from the state, which says that the absence of a stormwater permit may present a title encumbrance to involved parties. So to determine the amount of reduction, Truchon obtained a cost estimate of about $70,000 per acre for treatment of stormwater from Burlington. The estimate is about 5 years old, so she adjusted that up to $100,000. I think that's a similar number that we've heard used as an estimate in other conversations. There's 6.6 acres of impervious surface on private land in this area. So 6.6 acres times 100,000 is $660,000. Divided by 48 properties is $13,750 per property. So rounded up to a $14,000 reduction in property value for each property is what she's looking to do.
Bart?
Aren't we pretty close to having a better cost estimate for this specific site?
Yeah, but I think she needs to finalize numbers before that's going to happen because the grand list gets finalized very shortly. I think it might have actually got finalized
first.
a week or so ago, April 1st. Yeah. So we unfortunately can't really wait for much longer because I think she already did it.
Yeah, it's as of April 1st.
I mean, I asked the same question about if we could wait, but yeah, it's as of April 1st.
Well, so if it's the best available information as of April 1st, what if we have better information at either higher or lower cost?
That would be next April
Afterwards.
1st.
I'm
Yeah.
guessing then that there would be a modification up or down between this April 1st and next April 1st?
I would think it would be for the next round.
Can we clarify that?
Sure.
Because, you know, I'm not questioning like people's requests. It's just how do we get to the best available data and the best available answer? And so if we had to do it April 1st, we have to do it April 1st. But just one scenario, it's half of that in October.
Mhm.
In which case it would seem then in the following April that the property values go up by whatever that math shows.
Right. I think it would, I'll double check with her. I think it would most likely be the next grand list. I don't know that we'd make an adjustment mid-year, like sometimes you
Right.
make an
I
adjustment.
just,
Yeah.
so it's April, but between this April and
Yes.
that April, we'll have presumably better data
Oh, yeah.
about costs.
And we might have more information about the state no longer requires a permit, or we are going to go out to bid and meet the permit, and therefore there's less threat of a lien against the property. So it would be for the next grand list. It would be reevaluated.
Next April 1st.
Yeah, but not for this one.
Kara?
I'm most going to definitely speak on this matter. First of all, every person in Southview has the right to appeal their grand list value. They have gone to the lister, or assessor, who they've asked to have their values reduced because of this title issue. A letter from the state notifying you that you have to get a permit is not a title issue that's been found. It is not a true legal issue that has been documented to prevent the sale of properties. There's a big difference. Now, I want to address this whole reappraisal that happened, and I brought to your attention that Southview was one of the neighborhoods whose grand list tax payment went down. The town average was 63%. In Southview, the average reappraisal went 41%. That's over 20% benefit to Southview residents. 20% is a lot more than $13,000. If you look at the sales in Southview for the last year in the affected area, you have sales that have over assessed value. I'm going to read them to you. 49% over assessed value it sold for, and that was in August of 2024. 25%, 31%, 22%. You have one on the market right now that is, again, at that higher level to sell at over assessed value. So to take this neighborhood and you already lowered it with the reappraisal, and now you want to lower it more because of a potential title issue that the town is already on the hook and agreed to a grant and agreed to participate in the permitting process, which you didn't do at Greystone. You have not done at the mobile home park. The mobile home park had an increase of 9% higher than Southview on the average. So those homeowners who live in mobile homes, taxes got adjusted by 9% more than those in Southview. Went up 9% more. They have a stormwater permit over in that mobile home park. You've done nothing to help them and address them. This reeks of privilege. What are you doing for that community? What are you doing for the mobile home park owner who's going to increase the rent to deal with this? I'm not saying this was the right thing for the state to do, but I don't understand how a potential title issue, you did not reduce land, the properties all in the floodplain. That was ignored. So I am very passionate about this because we are talking about the more you reduce Southview's values, which properties up there, and let's be clear, sold for $955,000, $999,000, $937,000. This is not a community without means. This is not the mobile home park. I am not trying to be in judgment of others. I am trying to protect those who have a problem paying their own taxes as it is. And when you reduce the grand list, you increase everybody else's taxes in town. And you have people on Mountain View and Hillview that have a higher assessed value for their acreage of land than Southview, and they're on a dirt road. So I'm just saying, when I brought the reappraisal information to you and I said there was an issue here, and y'all went, thank you very much, now go sit back down. This process that your assessor just did, they took Greystone and reduced Greystone before the reappraisal. You know that. That was an issue that as a neighborhood, they reduced Greystone, reduced their assessed values as a whole. If we keep doing that in our neighborhoods that are our neighborhoods of means, then that is really sending the wrong message. And you don't have power. It's not your authority to determine the assessed value. You can only do it as a board of civil authority, correct? On the BCA or whatever the Bs are.
BCA.
But I'm just really concerned that it seems like if everybody in this town came with a title issue to the lister, then their values should be dropped. And I'm very, very concerned about that approach. That if it's not a documented, if they can't sell because of this title issue, then that's different than saying you need to get a permit.
David, I thought we were going to ask the lister to come to this meeting and describe what happened.
Yeah.
Did I miss that?
Yeah, I was a little surprised that this was already.
That was my memory of our last meeting. We were going to ask them to come and explain what the proposed approach is. So, yeah, I appreciate if there was an April 1st deadline, but I was not aware of that before now. And I would say, I think this merits a conversation with her in the room to explain what happens in Southview, what happens in the other neighborhoods, what happens to the houses that were damaged by flooding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So could we make a request for our next meeting to have that conversation?
And can she bring numbers? Total grand list value pre and post that her adjusted. How much are you dropping your grand list value by in those 44 homes in Southview? Is it just the 600,000?
One of the things that I've always understood is whatever the theoretical value of a home, that it really comes to the market value. When somebody buys it, it's definitive about that's what it's worth because that's what somebody paid for
Fair
it.
market value because that's what it's sold for. Yeah. Okay.
And then that has an impact on comparables, presumably. I mean, that's how real estate values would work.
Yeah.
So I think the questions are reasonable to say, how does this work? I'm also conscious of what will happen. You know, some other towns were resistant to let homes be bought out by FEMA because that would reduce grand list value. We did not take that approach.
Yeah.
So I personally am receptive to the idea of reacting to people's requests for, remedy when they've lost value. But there's probably a fair number of properties so situated.
Yeah.
But you have to prove that part. You have to prove that lost value. And there's no proof that this value is lost by having sales that are 49% higher than the assessed value.
Bart, I think your point was there are houses that have had clear decrease in value due to flooding.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's proven.
Yeah. Okay.
He's got a hand up.
Brendan, go ahead.
Yep. Just wanted to chime in and make sure I'm being as fair as possible. And I also did similar math to what Kara did, and our house in particular was below the mean in terms of increased assessed value percentage wise. So just want to be clear there. She's got a point.
Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you.
Are we ready to move on? So next, item G, update on advocacy organized by the Vermont League of Cities and Towns for the legislative process regarding the 3-acre stormwater permit.
So I was hoping Jay would still be here for this agenda item.
I was too.
Because he attended it. There is some information in the packet, a brief summary from VLCT. It sounded like Jay, and I can pull it up. So there was testimony last week from Jay, Chris Follett, the Berry Town manager, and a slate of affected homeowners, including a number from Southview. It sounded like Jay's overall take at the end of this was that the folks there kind of agreed that properties like this that aren't unified by a homeowners association, it's pretty challenging to move forward with this. So there might be some change to that. But I think that was also initial feedback after the initial conversation, and it remains to be seen what any final decision will be.
Bart?
So I did hear part of the VLCT advocacy. Geez, I guess it was earlier today, but I'm also looking at the link to their April 14th document. And some of these things jump out at you. They provided testimony that costs are $70,000 to $112,000 per acre, but again, it depends on where you are. And their estimate is for the 677 impacted sites, the total cost is in the ballpark of $700 million. And they describe this as, other than the construction of new water treatment plants, remediation of 3-acre sites is the most expensive clean water program in terms of dollar per estimated kilogram of total phosphorus load reduced. So if you're looking for a great return on investment, it would strike me that this would not be it. So they requested a number of things for permit reform. They mentioned that Jay Furr and the Berry Town manager and some affected homeowners testified. And they expect H481 to receive bill markup this week. And this week, I think, was last week. So it presumably is getting attention as we speak, H481. And they hope to see some common sense changes.
The arbitrary nature of picking the Southview site in particular is astonishing, because we just heard the engineer talk about how the ground percolates very well and the ground naturally absorbs a great deal of the stormwater. So for them to pick this property, this neighborhood that arguably already largely takes care of itself, is mind-boggling to me. Okay, anything else? Caitlin, you can come join us again.
Presumably we'll hear more. I mean, the legislative session has been delayed for a couple of reasons, but they still have to finish sometime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just be clear, because I might not stick the whole thing for your agendas for next time? The dealing with NEMRICS and how the assessed values were changed and how that is going to be dealt with. Right. you all have to approve a grand list value that they post. She has the opportunity to make corrections or adjustments to that. I would like to make sure that you are fully aware of the process and that you don't just rely on her for this, because if it's something that she's done that can be undone or should be undone, I really want you all to look at that, because it might be premature to do it since home sales have not been impacted by this.
Yeah.
Until you have proof that they have been, it's a knee-jerk reaction.
Okay, next we have consideration of approving an engineer for permit work on the Jericho Road stormwater permit.
So this is not a 3-acre permit. And it also does not include any private homeowners. So two things going for us at the outset of this. This is Jericho Road. If you envision Jericho Road heading from the stoplight, heading north up towards the school, on the left-hand side, you have the sidewalk and there's the green belt there. So when that road was worked on, I think it's 15 years ago or so at this point, and the sidewalk was added, there was, I think, about 0.19 acres of impervious that was added with the sidewalk. And at that time, the green belt was added to offset the additional impervious. So this permit is to ensure that green belt remains and is functioning as designed to treat stormwater. We are in need of an updated notice of intent, an annual report, and a restatement of compliance. Watershed Consulting can do this work for $2,500. And go into them with a few of these smaller permits because they're sort of already in the know here in Richmond and have done a good job so far. And I think we've already got them on Mary Drive and Hidden Pines as well.
Line 144.
Second here. Caitlin, I move to enter into an agreement with Watershed Consulting to complete the necessary work for the Jericho Road stormwater permit.
Thank you, Caleb.
This is Bard. I second that.
Thank you, Bard. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
Bard, aye.
David, aye. Okay. Next, we have an update on the police department inventory.
Governance committee first.
See, I didn't bring my glasses tonight. So
Expect to be chair.
who knew? Chairing any meeting?
Here you are. Oh yeah, there is a pair
No, I
in
can
the
get
drawer,
mine.
actually. There is.
So next is the update on the progress of the police governance committee.
So we did have what's that?
We met.
Do you want to give the update? You were there.
Oh,
I was sort of there.
yeah,
I can give it if it's easier.
yeah.
Okay, so we did meet last Monday for initial kickoff meeting. A lot of the conversation was about hiring a chief and how that would look between hiring a chief between Richmond and Heinsberg. Town manager of Heinsberg, Todd Odit, is going to come back with a request for proposal draft that would search for a hiring firm to help us with that recruitment and hiring process. So the committee is going to review that at the next meeting, which will be next Monday. We've decided to meet the second and fourth Mondays of every month at 3 o'clock.
And I am the vice chair of this committee. We felt it was important the chair and the vice chair be represented by Heinsberg and Richmond. And is it Frank?
I don't have it in front of me. Was it
It's being chaired by
one of the Heinsberg?
Heinsberg Select Board member.
Oh, it might have been Frank, yeah. It wasn't Dennis Place.
It was Dennis.
Was it Dennis as the chair? Okay.
Yeah.
Corporal Cohen was there too and apparently paid more attention. So was it Dennis? Okay, so Dennis is the chair.
I took good notes, but I didn't know there'd be a quiz.
But yeah, I think it was a good first meeting and we have, I think we'll also set a deadline to kind of come back to the board with some recommendations by this fall, noting that budgeting process starts in October. And if we need to make any, or if we're going to suggest any changes to budgeting or structure, we would likely need a vote on the budget and potentially a vote on changes in structure if there are to be any from the town. So it's sort of a short time frame, but sometimes a sense of urgency can be helpful.
My takeaway was there's strong interest in continuing the partnership and pretty common goal and understanding of what that's going to look like, but obviously a lot of the finer details need to be ironed out.
I agree. I think there was unanimous support of the concept, and then it's just about the details. How do you do it? How does governance work? Can we end up with a single department versus two conjoined departments?
And there's a lot of nuance on how to make any of those changes work, so. That's that. Okay, now I think we have Jay update on the police department equipment inventory. So Corporal Cullen, how many dogs did we get in the inventory?
None, actually. Include them on the inventory.
Where's Duke?
Sleeping.
Oh.
Doing his job.
Want me to share the screen so you can walk through it?
Yeah, I'm gonna open it up.
Or do you want to share? Or do you want me to share?
I was gonna share so I can.
Yeah, go ahead. If
Roll through it
if it's easier for you to do that, then by all means.
It's getting gas the other morning and I saw Duke on the job, so I had to stop and say hi.
And he remembered it.
He did.
All right. So over the past couple months, I've gone through the Richmond Police Department and organized it, documented what was in there, and basically started with this spreadsheet, and then it got so long I started adding sub spreadsheets into this. So the organization's not 100% where I want it yet, but it's definitely a great start and work in progress. I started really low-hanging fruit first, and I can go through line by line. I can just kind of do an overview. There's a lot of old equipment. There's a lot of stuff that has been there for over a decade or longer. A lot of it's going to have to go, and it's how do we dispose of it? How do we dispose of it properly? There are things like computers that have to go through a CJIS compliance. CJIS is a criminal justice information, where we have to basically remove hard drives and destroy hard drives of anything that could have criminal justice information on the computers. Things that need to can be recycled. Obviously, we'll make sure they get recycled. Things that are damaged or just could not be reused, can't reuse them. And so I kind of went through, there's also a lot of good equipment that we still have. There's a lot of things that are still in place. As I go down through, like all of our tasers are Taser 7s, which is not the newest item on the newest levels of tasers, but it is one of the top levels of tasers that we can have. They function, all of our tasers function really well. There's not an issue for replacement at the moment. I also know that a taser and body cam contracts will be coming up 2026 and 2027. I just don't remember which one is 26 and which one's 27 off the top of my head. That's an issue for later.
Right, but both of those are on contract, so I think that the equipment right now is good. And then when we get to the end of the contract, we'll have to reevaluate the equipment and the service.
Correct.
Let me just say, this is awesome. There is a lot of detail here.
Yeah, this is one of the things that, the select board approves the purchase, but then oversight of it falls onto the police chief. It's sort of off our radar. So I will sleep better at night knowing that this is being inventoried and kept track of.
Yep. As I go down through the list, like portable radios, those are pretty much all from 2007.
Wow.
So we should probably be looking at, in the very near future, replacing some of those. But it really also depends on where we go as a direction of the departments too, as far as what we should replace and when. Let's see what else we have. I have some really old portable radios, like some Kenwoods that I think got donated to the department sometime way past in the day, and they just are no longer usable. They're pretty much glorified walkie-talkies at this point. And then I kind of got down, this is more to the items that have gotten or used or still be able to keep. We're gonna, as I continued on through the list, we have, a lot of uniforms. Some of them are old styles, but there's uniforms there to be issued if we want to issue them or replace them or get rid of them.
What do you mean old style?
So each chief had chosen different styles based on what they chose for comfort, what what they want to wear at that time. This is a certain style of a uniform that has pockets everywhere, which is great for me. Everything's just like fashion, it changes. And it really depends on, can you even buy some of the same old styles?
Contemplated before.
So uniforms are supposed to be uniform between the entire department, so everyone looks the same and acts the same.
Should be uniform.
I know. Imagine that. So, I have a lot of different sizes and styles in our inventory. We can make decisions on what we want to keep and what we don't want to keep later.
Could I just pause? Because this is what this gets you to, right? Like, it's like when people move, keep, donate, throw away. So presumably there will be items like this. I was struck by like the firearms. There's like 3 rifles that are not serviceable.
So I'm gonna switch over to the firearms page here, because this is all the firearms that we do have in inventory. Of the firearms that we have, there's only one that needs a significant repair that could either need to be repaired or replaced or disposed of correctly. The other ones that are missing items, it's like missing optics.
Pretty simple.
Very simple. And those are typically aftermarket parts anyway, that you put on the rifle to make it more accurate for us to acquire a target.
But just to be clear, so if I pick up a rifle with no optic or rear sight, how do I aim it?
Well, right now I need to put on either an optic or rear sight, but like.
So it is sort of awkward to have a rifle that's almost able to be used, but not able to be used.
Correct. And this is, right now, it's currently, not issued to a person. They're in storage. The one that I currently is issued to me is in good working order and is working as it's supposed to. I have another one that's ready to go to be issued to the next person. If we get to the next step. When we get to that next step, it'd be time to buy an optic.
Okay.
And put an optic on it.
And I'm not a gun guy. That's an easy.
I could probably walk down to the store, pick one up in an hour.
Okay.
It might not be the best one, but it'll be a serviceable one. And then if we want something specific, we would have to order it, take probably a week.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the things that came out of this when I reviewed it with Matt last week was there's a significant amount of just junk. Tires that have been sitting for a while that are no longer usable or they've rotted.
Well, those are the shelf life.
Yeah, and even things like there were cages from cars that we no longer own, and they're so specific to the make and model of a car. There's really no resale value. And I think this is also part of a result of having 4 different chiefs / leaders of the department in the last 6 years. They'd get in, they'd do something, oh yeah, let's put that in storage, and then you just sort of move on. So I thank Corporal Cohen for going through this, and there's going to be a lot that we can really, to Kara's earlier point about town center, he's going to declutter a lot of that office and declutter the highway garage as well.
Yeah.
And we'll know what we have, we know when we're going to use it, and we know what we need to buy. Kara?
Couple questions, and you might know the answer, you might not. On the tires, in 2024, we bought $7,000 worth of tires. And if you take how many cruisers we have, it should mean that we have winter and summer tires for every single cruiser we own right now that are new, like 1 year old, for cars that we haven't had on the road. Is that the case?
So when it comes to tires, I actually have a lot of the tires down here.
And they shouldn't be any rotted. So those rotted tires should.
No, there's stuff that was like.
So we went through the tires that are in the highway garage. A lot of those tires were old tires that were never addressed.
They just put away and they sat there.
Put away and sat there. So a lot of them, actually, there was a number of them. I think we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of tires that were just.
5 sets means 20 tires.
Yeah, that was sitting over there that had either rot or wear down, and we had measured actually with the device that was like 3 millimeters. And could it go back on a car and pass inspection? Yes. Is it going to go back on a police cruiser?
No.
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 Those have been gone. Currently, we have 3 sets of studded snow tires. One for the Tesla and one for each Ford and a Durango. There's a set of summer tires for all the cars, and there is one extra set of summer tires for a Durango.
Can I ask you, are those sets of tires new tires? Because if they're not, we have a problem.
I didn't measure the ones that we were in clearly usable shape. I didn't go measure. I don't know when they were purchased. It might have been before my time. But I do know they are good to go back on the cars. And we're actually in the middle of changing those over.
Okay. That's what, as they change, is the town garage changing them over, or you take them somewhere to have them changed over? On the 4 cruisers we have, correct?
Town Garage had mentioned their interest in starting that system back up of changing the tires over for us again. I haven't scheduled with them yet.
Okay, so that would be the question for whoever's changing the tires, if they could determine if the life of the tire, because those tires have, in 2024, you spent $316 on fuel and $408 on electricity for the Tesla. Those tires should be pristine and pretty much be able to tell if they're new or not, because you spent $7,000 on tires. So I don't mean to be critical here, but I appreciate you getting rid of those other 20 tires that were sitting there, and I'm concerned that the other tires aren't the brand new ones. But anyhow, I'm going to drop that. The other question is the Hummer and the rifle, the rifle that was donated to us, to the police department, are they both gone?
The Hummer's gone. I don't know about a
Where did the
rifle.
Hummer go to?
There was, I think, a Korean era semi-automatic or automatic.
Oh, okay.
2 things that were donated to us.
The Hummer was gone before my time.
Yeah, that was Chief Buck got rid of that.
Where did
Okay.
it go to? Somebody had asked me, and I'm like,
No.
We don't have any real old assault rifle or semi-assault rifle.
No, the only thing that we have is a 22 caliber long rifle, which is like a small game rifle that's over there.
Or like a rabid raccoon or something.
Yeah, that's the only thing that would be out that I noted. It's not out of place, but just that was not uniform with everything else.
yeah, that is not, that's not the kind of rifle we're talking about.
I didn't think so, but I.
Oh,
If
The Hummer
we-
was donated to us, and I think we gave it
Back.
We gave it to somebody.
That'd be
I
good to
know.
where those 2 things went, because those are the 2 things that I was asked about when somebody heard about the inventory. They're like, I don't know. I'll ask.
I was told where the Hummer went. I'll have to find out.
Wes might know that.
and what was
Probably
the,
does.
there
He
was,
stored it.
there was a rifle, like an antique rifle of some sort, Bart?
I wouldn't describe it as antique.
sorry,
It was
sorry.
an early generation semi-automatic, if I recall. I don't even know what it was, but it was,
Interesting.
it was more modern than an M1 carbine. But not as modern as an AR-15 or an M16,
And what
somewhere in
time,
between.
when it was donated, you think?
I think it came as military surplus with
Yep.
bells, whistles, and strings.
Sounds like the same time as the Hummer came here.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that was probably 10 years ago? So I think I remember, was it? I thought I remember the Hummer, but I wasn't working here. Maybe it was
Flew
15 years
away.
ago. I've been up there a
Flies,
while.
flies.
It sure does. Yeah. I wonder who would know about the semi, who was chief at that point? Was that Buck?
Buck.
We could ask Buck if he remembers.
So, I don't know.
If it's not there, it's not there.
Yeah.
If we have inventory of 2 things that were donated to us, there was a big public deal with it, the public wants to know.
Well, right, this was, but really what Corporal Cohen did was go through what's physically in front of him. Yeah.
Not seeing these things, I'm just.
There-
bringing it to your attention. My
yeah.
last question, and I think you've done a great job, and I'm so appreciative of this because I've been asking for it for years. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Is when it comes to determining what's being kept, given away, donated, whatever, or trashed in the proper way of trashing it, is that something that you guys have to go through? Or can he, as a police officer, because he has more knowledge of this stuff than you all do, can it be determined that he and Josh can make these decisions so that you don't have to go line by line by line by line and make those kinds of decisions?
We were already making those
Some of the
decisions.
things that were
Disposed.
disposed, it's got disposed. I know when it was. Some of the bigger items like the partitions for the cars, that all that metal, I wanted to wait to present to you guys before we started to actually pull it and.
I might have a buyer for you.
Scrap metal?
Scrap metal,
Scrap metal.
yeah, that's the only thing that
No.
it could be used for right now, probably. Or you have somebody who has a 2017, whatever.
Explorer.
Yeah. Then I guess, let us know. I mean, that is, if there's anything like that, we could like put it up for sale and see if there's any bite,
Okay,
and if not, we could just get rid of it.
Well, so this is back to that sorting hat
Yeah.
of keep,
Right.
donate, or like somehow get value out of it, or destroy it. And you could see some things like, you know, a partition for a vehicle that we don't have anymore. There's no reason to keep it around. We're not getting a 2017 Ford.
Correct.
It's just a matter of, is there any sort of resale value or not?
And that is the
That's
question.
about
And
it.
I think it's as much art as science. Is there any market for a partition for a 2017 Ford Interceptor?
Right.
If there is, we put it out. If we don't think there is, we could dispose of it as scrap metal, right?
Well, there's salvage value max.
Hey, that's what I
Yeah.
mean.
And to be 100% fair, like I'm not a parts guy. I could tell what this is, but do I have all the pieces for it? I don't know.
Probably not.
Are you talking weapons or other things?
The partitions or like
The cruiser cage.
Okay.
the cages for the cruisers or
A control box and switches.
yeah, some control box and switches. Do I have even the wiring that's supposed to go between them? Like I know one of the light bars, the wiring was cut about that far out from basically where the roof would reach the roof.
Right.
And I know that's supposed to have like a 20-foot line to reach the trunk. Like
Yes, but.
who's gonna rewire that?
Use that light bar. So you could have a yard sale. I mean, a pickup free pile, and you'd be surprised what stuff is gonna disappear.
But the other piece of these with the light, especially light bars and lights, they're specifically blue lights.
So you can't just
Yeah.
take
And
them.
you can't take them, you need to go get, either someone has to change out the each individual light inside those, which you can do. But a lot of people are not.
Fire department people, if it can be switched out from blue to red, it could be beneficial, is all, I mean, I'm all about reuse,
Yeah.
recycle.
But that's where I think it's like,
It's more about, that one probably get recycled for the
Yeah.
electronics out of that, then.
Yep.
because some of it is so specific too. So.
When I registered my old cruiser, which has blue lights and CB radio and everything, I told the DMV, what do I do about the blue lights? Oh, you can't have the blue lights. You need to take those off. I said, that's too bad. And they said, unless you register it as an antique. I said, what? Oh, yeah, with an antique, you can, okay.
So thanks. I think we probably heard what we need to hear. I like how you've gone through this and
fantastic
appreciate
Yeah,
the
it's
detail
great.
that you've gotten to.
And then if no other questions, I do have a plug to put in at the end of this. I did locate our speed cart and made sure that is up and running and working. So if any residents would like to request that at their house, please send me an email with your name and address, and I'll put it onto a rotating list. And I will just put it out from, beginning of May to the middle end October.
Kenyon Road.
Just send me an email so I keep track.
Yep. Treat everyone fairly.
Yep, but I'll put it, I'll basically first come, first serve, I'll put it on a list, and when I get to your name on the list, I'll come drop it at your house for a few days to a week. We'll get it out, we'll pick it back up, move it to the next location.
Nice.
And Matt, that does collect data, right?
I believe it does.
Perfect. So we
But it
can
has
just
to be
make
told
sure.
to collect data.
I think it has to be, I think there's a couple things, but yes.
I just want to make sure that we should be collecting the data for future speed studies. It would be
Yes.
helpful.
See what's going on in various neighborhoods.
Yeah, good.
Found it
Awesome.
underneath 2020 used rotted tires. I do have a question about an agenda item for you all.
Let me stop you.
It's part of police department equipment. And I did bring it up years ago. I would like the discussion open back up about selling the Tesla. And I would like it on agenda item. And if you had listened to me 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it would have higher value. And it would have been money in your bank. But anyhow, I still would like it to be an agenda item and I still want you to get rid of it. It's not a police cruiser.
Okay,
And increasingly unpopular.
there is that.
Yes, and so I'm thinking now might be the time that
Yeah.
wrong time, wrong value. But again, that's where I support us making sure, I appreciate you not buying parts to make things work right now that aren't necessary. I appreciate that you're waiting for to actually have bodies that need to use them for us to. So same with the Tesla.
Officer Cullen, anything else?
That's it for me.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
You guys have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have an update on Hillview Heights subdivision, environmental division decision approving the subdivision.
So this was the Hillview Heights subdivision, which has been before the board a couple of times, I think most recently with the access permit and the sightline issues that we had on Hillview Heights. So it was ultimately appealed to environmental court. I think there were 2 appeals. One of them was settled. The other one went to a full trial or full hearing. And environmental court has issued its decision. They have approved the subdivision and I think dismissed the appeals. So it will go on as it was approved by the DRB.
Next, we have consideration of approving an easement for the Vermont Electric Power Company in the Andrews Community Forest.
So this was an easement that the board approved at their December 2nd, 2024 meeting. This is an easement for Vermont Electric Power Company to basically drive from the parking lot of Andrews Community Forest up to their power lines. They actually have a deeded right to access those power lines however they would like to through the land. But this road gives them a road that's improved, that they've maintained, that they can drive heavier equipment over. It doesn't extinguish their rights to go wherever they like, but it's going to put 90% or more of their access through this. There might be some times they need to have other routes for other vehicles, for other needs, but most of their routes are going to be going through this way. So the board approved it on December 2nd. It went to Vermont Land Trust. They took some time to review, but have come back with a few very minor edits, just some sort of things referencing other parts of the deed and easement. Velco has approved those. Our town attorneys looked at them and said it doesn't change the nature of the easement any. So they're fine with them. So just coming back to the board to approve the updated easement from Velco. As a reminder, we are going to get a $2,500 maintenance payment from Velco to pay for the road that they had been using north of the power lines to restore some wear and tear on that road, and $8,549.45 as a fee for this easement.
David, if you're ready, I'd like to move to approve the updated easement for Velco for access to the power lines located in the Andrews Community Forest, which includes payment by Velco to the town of $2,500 maintenance payment and $8,549.45 easement payment to be deposited into the Andrews Community Forest Reserve Fund, and to appoint town manager Josh Arneson as the duly authorized agent of the town of Richmond to sign the easement.
Thank you, Bart. Do we have a second?
Caitlin, I'll second.
Thank you, Caitlin. Any further discussion? Yes.
David, the cost of the easement, the $8,000 cost of the easement, is that the legal cost that it cost our attorney to review the easement?
I believe so.
So why would that go into the Andrews Reserve Fund and not reimburse ourselves for our legal fees?
So I don't think we spent that much. There was not that much review from our attorney on this. The board wanted to look into reducing the amount of legal review out of that fee. We could do that.
Isn't the reserve fund for the Andrews Forest restricting us just to use those funds there? And these funds you've taken out of your legal expense account that should be reimbursed to your legal expense account, not specific to the Andrews Forest, is my question. That's one piece of the question. And is the $2,500 an annual maintenance fee? How Is it a one-time maintenance and who maintains, is the easement say they maintain it from here on forward?
So that's a one-time maintenance fee for a different access to restore that other access that they had been using. To put some water bars in it or restore that. So that's a one-time fee. And then the regular easement, there's not an ongoing maintenance fee for that.
But we
But
don't
they
maintain it.
But they maintain it, don't they?
I'd have to read, I don't,
I thought they maintained it.
I would have to, I don't know off the top of my head. I'd
I
have
think
to look
you'd
back
want to
into
make
it.
sure of that, so you're not having us, the taxpayers have to maintain something for.
Right,
for-
I think they probably, I'd have to read through it again to,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm virtually positive that they maintain it.
I don't need to add things in here, but it's important that we do have funds.
When I've walked up there, it sure looks like they maintain a bunch of their.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they've actually got
roads.
they've got the bridge as well and the
Yeah.
fence there, so.
I don't see in the actual access easement agreement any mention of funds, so it's not clear to me what these are intended to accomplish or what they're paid for.
So if they're buying the easement, which it sounds like they are, it would make sense for that to go into the Andrews Community Forest Reserve Fund. But to Kara's point, we might want to recoup any legal fees that the town incurred as a result of this easement from that 8549.
They're buying an easement for nothing. I mean, 2,500 is maintenance for the road. $8,000 is for costs associated, which would be legal costs. So they were basically giving them the easement.
Yeah, I'd have to, I mean, I'm sorry, I was more well versed on this back in December when it first
was
came to
I.
the board. I was
Yeah.
assuming this was just gonna be, since you've already approved it, like, oh yeah, some additional language, we're good and we're moving on.
Yeah.
So I would, and Wright Preston was, well, not Wright, yeah, Wright
Yeah,
was
it was
very,
Wright
Wright was very involved in the negotiations back and forth. And I don't recall exactly the details of where the 85, 49, 45 came from. We could go back and look at it and try to pull that out and pull out the legal fees if you guys are interested. Or we could go with the original motion from back in December.
Well, it's just curious to me because it says it moved to approve the updated easement, which includes payments by Velco, but the easement document itself is
Right.
silent on payments.
Right, they do have an agreement that are going to pay us that money as well, but it's not in the easement. And I remember we had the same conversation in December.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not in that easement itself. So.
What's the will of the board? We could bring this back, we could approve as is, or we could amend to have legal fees come out of that fund.
I would amend and have legal fees come out of that fund. Unless my only hesitation there is, what is that? Is that paying for something specific, or that the community forest reserve is fronting or something?
Maybe just to clarify, what is the $2,500 for and what is the 854945 for? And to what degree then, to the degree that there was a cost of the attorney, I
Right.
think to your points, that it's reasonable to deduct that as a cost of business for the community forest. And perhaps put the balance in to the reserve fund.
Right.
Pretty weird number to not do. for
Yeah,
someone.
and again, there was,
Probably is.
back in
It's just-
December, we
yeah.
had right here, I knew more, and I was not expecting to like rehash it all. So like, I don't have the answers. I don't have the answers. I had them in December.
Expect you to, Josh.
Okay,
It's
I'm just saying,
number to be not more legal.
well, it
I
was
don't
for,
remember it either.
it was for something, I did not bone back up on what it was exactly for, and I think at the last meeting, Wright knew exactly what it was for, and I just didn't commit it to memory. So, we could get all those questions and come back next time if you want, if that is what you.
Yeah, let's do that. I think there's and I can try to catch up on some of the historical stuff too, but I think just knowing, like, is that reimbursing something that if we took the legal funds out of that, it doesn't make sense? Like, I
Yeah.
think that kind of weighs into the decision too, yeah.
And I apologize, I did know that information, but it's
Yeah,
gone.
I did as well back in December, and Wright, I'm sure if he was listening, he would have a answer in a
Yeah.
second for you.
Okay, we'll bring that back. So next, item M, update on process of providing feedback to the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission regarding future land use mapping. new land use categories and housing targets.
So some more information is included in the packet for you. There's really no decision tonight. This is just a heads up that this is coming to the board this spring. The Planning Commission talked about it last week at their meeting. One of the main decisions is if we want to opt into sort of a carve out for certain developments for Act 250 or not. The Planning Commission, I think maybe even next meeting, will have a recommendation for the board. And then there's a comment period, which I think goes till about the end of May on the future land use mapping from the Regional Planning Commission. So again, not prepared to talk about this one tonight. I think we'll have more information at the next meeting. This was more of a forewarning to the board. If you want to start to get familiar with those documents, there they are. And they'll come back. And Bard, you probably have more information.
Well, I was going to recommend if we're really going to engage in this, and I think it might merit a real engagement. The discussions at the Regional Planning Commission is these don't have any real impact in the short term, but the more cautious members of the commission would close by saying yet. So there could be financial rewards and punishments for meeting your targets later, even though nobody's talking about that. There is concern that the legislature or executive branch might be inclined to do that. There was also a conversation about where is development feasible. And I think one example might be here. If I read the map correctly, it shows the field on Browns Court as available for development, which of course we have recently addressed and are continuing now to make investments, not as development, but as recreation land. So those are sort of things, when I brought that up, they were like, oh, that's a tweak, we could deal with that. Appreciate the difficulty for the Regional Planning Commission staff producing maps of this level of detail for the entire county. So one would be shocked if they didn't have some oversights, errors, or omissions. So that's the sort of getting into the weeds. Then the bigger picture is, where would new housing development actually occur? And how do we want to support that as a town? There is a heavy emphasis on areas served by water and sewer, which in our town is not much. So you'd have either infill or extensions. There are also, the legislature is discussing a new TIF approach that's a site-based tax incremental financing, where either a developer or the town could have a TIF tax repayment plan for a single development, not just a parcel or a region. It could be for a specific proposed development in partnership with a developer. So there's a bunch of things going on with housing, which is why I think Planning Commission and perhaps the Select Board might contemplate these together. What do we learn from this? What are our opportunities, and what perhaps are our concerns?
Thank you, Bard.
Just Bard, a question on that. Bard, on the regional planning, are they coming up with like a map overlay so that we're able to see? Like you're talking about a parcel at Browns Court, right? So they know parcels that they've targeted for some reason.
Yeah, you should pull up the map maybe so you can see what it shows. And then it's sort of difficult, at least on my computer, to blow it up to see it.
Is this the map you want? I think there's a, is that the only
Yeah,
map?
yeah, that one's good enough.
Well, that's the only one, so it better be. So you want me to get into Browns Court?
Yeah, so if you blow it up a bit, and then you can sort of find your way into parts of the town and the village.
Right in here.
So I know the village, I would make sense, it's water and sewer there, but what are the outskirts? What are the greens and yellows? And what is that? Just what?
Oh, there are what,
Key.
12 or 14 categories. There's the key or legend.
Okay, so I'll look at this map and get a better understanding for your next level of presentation, but because when you talk land use, you talk about the changes in land use. It's a pretty severe impact on properties. So it's very important to understand the comparison of what CCRP is saying to what we actually have in place now. And that would be something our planning commission, I would think, would be doing, is to create that chart or that spreadsheet to analyze, like, what are the changes that are, here's the list of uses that we can have, and here's what they're, because either the CCRPC is trying to restrict use or they're trying to expand use, and they could be trying to restrict use in certain areas and expand use in other areas. And so the individual property owner doesn't know how to read this stuff and doesn't know how to know what is the true impact of my parcel. So you just went through the lister, changing parcel values for a potential title issue. You're going to change parcel values on a land use. That's a major.
So no, what I understood from CCRPC, they were not intending to change anything. They are intending to map what's there for the town. They don't have the authority to tell the town to change things. What they were trying to do was put these to say what are the land use categories? Are they accurate based on town zoning? But the real point of this is to then lead towards where is housing going to be built. So an example, let's say rural conservation, you can't build a house there. And there's no intent from the CCRPC to change rural conservation to allow building of homes. So part of this, I think, is twofold. To look at the map, do we think it's accurate? Are there any errors, omissions when they interpret our zoning into the mapping? And to be fair, CCRPC does most of the mapping for municipalities in the county. We aren't doing our own because we don't have the staff, the skill, and the applications to a very large degree. And then the real thing is then to take this and say, what does this mean for housing development? Where would you put more housing? If the town of Richmond were interested in supporting the legislative mandate as passed down through CCRPC, what does it say about housing? But you're right, it also speaks to where are all these developments. When I have conversations with other people on the Regional Planning Commission, very few of them understand our topography, the combination of a river that comes up and streams that come down. And that is not common. I mean, Virgins doesn't have that further south. Shelburne doesn't have that. Burlington doesn't have that. I mean, everybody has their own thing. But we are very, very heavily influenced by our topography and what is even possible to develop. And arguably, less of it's appropriate for development over time because of flooding. So you go, well, then what's left is kind of the conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate that update and that knowledge of what you've been doing.
Ready to move on? Moving on.
Oh, the one thing I would suggest is perhaps ask Keith and the Planning Commission, is it worth a joint conversation about the mapping and the housing targets? Because they will both arguably get some attention. And the legislature is paying a lot of attention to a whole bunch of housing things right now.
Yeah.
The last comment I'll make there, one of the people who serves on the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission is Jeff Carr, who is a fairly well-known economist, said, how to say this, these targets are never going to be met. There aren't enough workers, there are not enough supplies, the supply chain can't support it, and then throw tariffs on top of it. So at least in terms of the more ambitious targets, he was very direct in saying those things, I can't picture those things ever happening given the constraints that we face.
Yep.
Putting that aside, there still is this question of what can we do to support housing development, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Bart.
Yep.
Next is consideration of accepting grant from the Federal Highway Administration Emergency Relief Funding for 2023 flood expense reimbursement.
So this is, goes back to 2023 flood. There are certain roads in town that are federal aid roads. They're certified as arterial urban collectors and major rural collectors. So Jericho Road, Heinsberg Road, and Huntington Road are all federal aid roads, and they were all damaged in the July 2023 storm. FEMA does not reimburse for federal aid roads, so we submit a claim to FHWA for those roads. I think this total, all told, came to a little over, let me find the exact number. It's about $100,000. They're reimbursing 100% of the costs.
So can I just say, given our environment in Washington, anything we can do to sign an agreement to get FEMA or FHWA funds ASAP is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So this is, yeah, the total award amount is $101,336.16, and that's based on the data that Duncan and Pete provided them. So I suggest, yeah, let's get our money before they change their mind.
This is Caitlin. I move to accept the grant from the Federal Highway Administration, FHWA, emergency relief to reimburse the town of Richmond for repairs to Jericho Road, Heinsberg Road, and Huntington Road that were necessary due to damages from the July 2023 flood.
This is Bart. I will second that.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Bart. Any further discussion?
Does it take 6 years to get to Josh?
No, this is the final step in the very long, almost 2-year process. Yeah, at this point, they have the money, they have all of our information, they're ready to pass. But yeah, it's a good question.
Like Bart said, the sooner the better.
Yes.
So calling motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
Bart, aye.
David, aye. Motion carries. Okay, next. Consideration of submitting a letter of intent to participate in the SFY 26 Municipal Roads Grant and Aid Program.
Yeah, so this is an annual program that the state puts on to provide money to towns to deal with MRGP permitting. So a lot of it's stone line ditching, culvert improvements, all things that we have to do to comply with the permit. So the town's portion this year is estimated at $25,500. I think that could change if some towns don't opt in, although I think most towns do opt in. And there's a 20% match, I think, but we're going to spend that anyway. So this is certainly to help the budget go further. And we don't have to decide on a project right now, just submitting a letter of intent, and then we do all the reporting once Pete. And there's certain segments of road that are identified with the state that we have to upgrade, and that's what he puts into the work plan.
David Disbar, I move to approve the letter of intent for the grant and aid program.
Thank you, Bart. Do we have a second?
This is Caitlin, I'll second.
Thank you, Caitlin. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
Bart, aye.
And David, aye. Motion carries. We've taken care of the executive session. Going on to approval of minutes, purchase orders, and warrants. I guess I'll start with asking for a motion to accept the minutes of the April 7th meeting.
Is Bart so moved?
Thank you, Bart. Do we have a second?
Caitlin, second.
Thank you, Caitlin. Anybody have any suggestions for changes or edits on the draft? Hearing none, this is a motion to approve the minutes of April 7th as presented. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
Bart, aye.
David, aye. Those minutes are approved. Purchase orders.
Calling them up here, give me 1 second. These are all in the right order. So 5022, yep.
First, we have purchase order 5022 to Casella Waste Systems, and this is an amendment to a previously approved purchase order. We are looking for a motion to amend this approval amount to $11,402.86. And this was for debris removal from one of the two 2024 floods.
Well, there's only one flood, I think. But yeah, this is a dumpster that we initially had some dumpsters to affected areas of town. I thought they were all picked up. Apparently there was one that was still there. Casella alerted me to it a few weeks ago. We got it picked up. So that's why this one's coming in so much later than all the other ones that you approved back in the summer.
That's right, 2024 was just the July
Just
flood. There
the
was
one
no
flood.
December There was a close.
And there were not two floods in July like there were in 23. So, yeah, 23 was quite active. But yeah, the one flood in 24 was damaging enough.
Caitlin, I move to amend purchase order number 5022 to Casella Waste Systems, Inc. to $11,402.86 for debris removal from the 2024 flood.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Is Bart, I'll second that.
Thank you, Bart. Calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
David, aye. That has been approved.
Gosh, do we get reimbursed for that?
Yeah.
Great.
Moving on to purchase order 5279 to East Engineering. Looking for a motion to approve purchase order 5279 for $35,000 for engineering for the repair of Dugway Road due to the damages from the July 2023 flood and the July 2024 flood.
Is Bart so moved?
Thank you, Bart. Do we have a second?
Caitlin, I'll second.
Thank you, Caitlin. Following the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
Bart, aye.
David, aye. Next, I'm looking for a motion to approve purchase order 5280 to Acme Glass in the amount of $3,080.11 with funds coming from the Town Center and Library Reserve Fund to upgrade the locking and door opening mechanisms of the front door at the Town Center to enable it to be compatible with the electronic access control system.
This Bart so moved.
Thank you, Bard.
Caitlin, second.
Thank you, Caitlin. Bard?
Front door is which door?
Yeah, so it's the second door that you enter from
The
parking lot. Both doors are failing, as you probably noticed. So, but the one that we're gonna add the electronic access control to is the actually interior door.
Yeah.
So the earlier bid was just for those control devices. So they're gonna work on all the other doors except for this door, which has the plunger and there's a rod there. So we need to retrofit that to then add the electronic device to it. Because the door, the mechanics in the door itself.
Art don't lend itself to that.
Yeah, and they're so old and that thing sticks all the time anyway. So even if we were gonna go to the electronic, I would say we gotta do something. And we have to do something about the outer door too, because now the right door doesn't even close half the time. It's terrible.
We price the outer doors and can we price inner doors at the same time?
So we did price the outer doors at one point. I think it was more than 3,000. We can ask the same folks if they can do both while they're here.
I don't mean for the retrofitting, I mean.
No, I mean for the fixing of the mechanics inside.
New door.
Just start over.
New door, I'm on the town center committee, we authorize you, we want new doors for the outer doors. And if the inner doors need to be placed too, we want a price on replacing both sets of doors. We need to fix it, we need to stop having things look like crap and not work. We don't want the staff having to deal with it. We want new outer doors and a price on new inner doors to see if it's, I think we gave a $15,000. Yes, go to the select board, yes, spend 15 out of the town center reserve fund. They need to be fixed. That's the main entrance of this structure. It needs to work. And it not be hazardous for people. It needs to be safe, work, secure, all of that.
So David, is it fair to table this until we say, are we fixing up those doors? Or are we just taking them out and putting in new doors that work better?
I'll kick it back to you, Josh. Have you committed to this? Do you need to call and renegotiate
Nope,
that?
we haven't committed to it. If we want to look at totally new doors, it might just delay the access control installation if we're going to get brand new doors, and maybe they can do all the doors except, I don't know, it's just, we've got other projects sort of sequenced with it. But if we want to look at totally new doors, we can do that.
Those doors feel to me like maybe 70s.
Oh, they're old.
Yeah, I agree with Kara on this. We should explore. I mean, I'd hate to put $3,000 in those doors and then 6 months from now we replace them.
Please, please.
So we'll table that. So next, looking for a motion to approve purchase order 5286 to M&T Wilmington Trust for the Highway Department portion of the Millet Street loan in the amount of $7,046.27.
This is Bart, so moved.
Thank you, Bard.
Caitlin, second.
Thank you, Caitlin. Any discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote. This is a motion to approve purchase order 5286 to M&T/Wilmington Trust for the Highway Department portion of the Millet Street loan in the amount of $7,046.27. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
David, aye. It carries. Next, looking for a motion to approve purchase order 5288 to Union Bank in the amount of $50,614.05 for a loan on the fire engine.
This is Bart, so moved.
Caitlin, second.
Thank you, Bard. Thank you, Caitlin. This is the 2005 loan?
I think this is 2018 fire engine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
And David, aye. I believe we're done.
We do the warrant.
We did not. Thank you, Bard. So I am looking for a motion to approve the warrants as presented.
This is Bart, so moved.
Caitlin, second.
Thank you, Bard. Thank you, Caitlin. Any questions? We haven't had warrant questions in a long time. So calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
David, aye. So items for next agenda, we have a couple things coming back. Questions on the easement in the Andrews Community Forest. Can't even read my notes.
Your assessor.
Yes, conversation with the assessor. Possibly selling the Tesla.
How many people do you need to hear from on that?
On the Tesla?
Yeah, we would like us to put out a post in the front porch forum, so everybody.
Well, so
I want
Yeah.
to hear first from the police officers.
yeah, and I don't know if we'll have time. The next agenda, we also have CSWD is going to present. We've got a public hearing on Galena Court zoning. We've got maybe the fry wagon being sold. We've got a few financial things, 2 policies that we need to approve. We got third quarter financials. So there's a few items that are going to take some time.
Well, is it possible? I guess we didn't really have it on tonight's agenda. I mean, what I'm thinking is you put it out for, people to bid on, and then you don't have to accept any bids till they make a bid that you think is reasonable.
I mean, I guess we can try to add it into the agenda. Just that I'm already seeing that one getting large. I mean, I guess my first concern is we only have 4 cars. I know we only have 1 officer, but
Yeah.
it does limit the ability to hire up to 4.
Conversation with Matt while you were in executive session, so.
Okay.
I'll come back to you, he'll tell you his opinion, but
Okay.
he's all for getting rid of Tesla, so.
All right. Well
He's
then,
an officer here.
Yeah, between Matt and Frank, our
Yeah.
chief, acting chief.
sure.
I mean, they both say get rid of it.
The Tesla does have dog mode where you just press a button and it keeps the
That's Duke's
climate
car.
control going.
Does it?
Huh. Well, he still says get rid of it, so we're good.
Wonder if he knows about
He
dog
likes
mode.
more room in his other vehicle, no.
Yeah. The Tesla is
Does the
tight.
dog?
Mhm.
Anything else? Calling for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second,
Thank you. Calling the motion to a vote.
Caitlin, I.
Bard, aye.
David, aye. We are adjourned 9:31 PM, 26 minutes overtime.